Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. This is episode 464, and tonight I'm sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. As always, you are. Thank you for listening. There we go. That's the right thing to say. Thank you for listening, whether you are here for the live streams on Discord, or you listen on the podcast or YouTube feeds, or if you listen on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of the show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. I always want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, as well as Liam Martin, host of the Exiled Minds podcast, for producing the show and putting it up on the station. If you'd like to support the show, there are some different ways to do that. You can always share the show with others. Also, you can rate and review the show on your podcast platform of choice. If you would like extra content, you can join the Patreon. There you can get at least one episode of the show, extra episode every month, and hopefully soon will be more than that at any membership level, and that will come out at least once a month. Like I said, I'm planning on working more in as I go, and so that's another way to help if you'd like. Also, if you'd just like to make a one-time donation, you can always check out the PayPal and Venmo links as well, as there are expenses for making the show in terms of equipment and research materials, and then also travel expenses. Help is never expected, but always appreciated. I'll be heading to the Mid-Michigan Paracon this year on November 4th and 5th. That's on Saturday and Sunday. And that's at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Planning on doing some recordings there of myself, and then if anyone else wants to be included in that, they are welcome. Just on the paranormal in general, thoughts on what's being discussed there, and then experiences, any of those things, and then I will share those recordings on the show once I get back. So I think that covers everything. I will be doing an extra show this week. It won't be a stream, but it'll be another listener experiences show. So that'll come out probably Friday morning. By the time it gets posted and everything, it'll be recorded on Thursday night. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and always enjoy those shows because that's the main focus of this show. Is everyone that has an experience is welcome to share it on here, as long as it's not too graphic, obviously. But yeah, looking forward to doing that show on Thursday. So now I'll get to the stories I have for tonight. This first one says, I live in the UK. 2 years ago, I had a workplace accident that left me with a concussion and other injuries, so I stayed in the hospital for a time. My mother, 50 years old, picked me up, 22-year-old female, at this hospital at around 9 p.m. one night, and we started the 2-hour long drive to get to my home. My mother always felt odd on a specific stretch of let me see here. A stretch of road at night. That was words are messed up there. Anyway, which was part of the route we took. A bright red car overtook us on the straight road. Out of nowhere, we saw a misty white truck heading towards the red car. There was no impact, and the red car continued before moving back into the proper lane. At first, I thought I was just seeing things due to the concussion, but my mother was holding on tight to the steering wheel, wide-eyed, for the rest of the journey. I asked my mother if she saw the ghostly truck, and she confirmed that she had seen it. We were both quiet for the rest of the ride. My mother turned on the radio at one point to break the silence. My mother avoids that road now. I still can't explain what we saw. It left us both baffled. And that's where that story ends. So it sounds like those two women, they saw a real red car, a regular red car that was going to pass them, and it did go alongside them for a little bit. But then they also saw a white truck that appeared to be almost ghost-like that headed for the car, but then I guess vanished, and the car went on and passed them and got back into the right lane. And so it sounds like they saw some kind of a truck that was not in the same dimension as they were. Basically a apparition of some kind, or some other kind of anomaly where it was just a view into another level of reality or another time. Who knows? But that's not uncommon either. People seeing vehicles on the road that just appear to be sort of like ghostly, almost like people are, but they're vehicles. Or in some cases, the vehicles look solid, but then they just vanish. But either way, that's not unheard of. I've found over the years, I've heard and read many stories similar to that. So that really is amazing. I can understand why the people there would be freaked out by it. I'm wondering if maybe the people in the red car didn't even see this truck. Maybe they're not as sensitive. Maybe it had to do something to do with the abilities of the writer of that story and the mother, or even as the writer sort of suggested, she was dealing with injuries. I wonder if that could have they were affecting her ability, or her view of reality, maybe allowing her temporarily to see into other levels of reality. And maybe the mother is just sensitive. There's so many variables there, but at least that both of them saw something, and they saw the same thing as far as they could tell. So really amazing story there, and I'm guessing the other car must not have seen the person in the other car. The red car must not have seen anything. Otherwise, you would think they would have swerved out of the way to avoid running into this truck. Is all I can think. Of course, I don't know for sure, but yeah, that's an amazing story there. I really wonder what the person or people in that other car saw, if anything. Again, I feel like they may not have seen anything if they didn't react to it. So yeah, really amazing story there. Not sure what to make of that, but I don't doubt that it happened, and I don't doubt that it can happen. Again, so many stories of odd sightings of vehicles on the road that just seem to vanish. So yeah, neat story there. Moving on to the next one. Let's see here. This one says, "This is an experience that I found out about, from my boyfriend after it happened. We were both asleep on top of our bunk bed. My boyfriend woke up and saw me staring at him. He asked me, in quotation marks, why I, again in quotation marks, was awake. This woman, who looked just like me, got out of bed and walked out of the room. My boyfriend then felt me move next to him and realized I was still asleep. He quickly woke me up and said someone was in the house. We didn't find anyone or any evidence of intruders either. This happened a few years ago, and we still don't know what to make of it. And that's where that story ends. I wonder if it was a sort of a astral projection, out of body experience. It sounds like it almost to me. The way this figure just was sitting up and looking at the boyfriend. This apparition of the writer was sitting there looking at the boyfriend, or maybe looking in his direction anyway. And then just got up and left the room. But again, if the writer was asleep, that could have been some part of their consciousness or their mind or their spirit. Who knows what exactly, that was just going through some kind of emotions in their mind, and that somehow was able to also appear outside of her mind and her body to the boyfriend. I don't know, but that really is amazing, because it sounds like it was a solid. This figure appeared to be solid, not like a ghost, not like transparent or translucent or like that. But again, I wouldn't surprise me if it was this person, but then again, you never know for sure either. So at least nothing else happened. I'm glad, but that makes me think, whenever that happens, where it's just sort of this one encounter and this one experience that almost sounds like an out-of-body experience or an astral projection, that makes me think that lean towards that option more, because it's not like anything that is doing anything else to mess with the people there besides that, if that's the case. So, but yeah, neat story with that one. A couple of short stories here, but they're really the short ones are not bad. I don't mind the short ones because they're nice and easy to get through, and they still provide enough to talk about there. So let me get to the next story here. And let's see. This one says, let's see here. Okay, there we go. My family lived in a town with a dangerous glass factory. My great uncle worked there and lived in the upper floor / attic of my grandparents' house. One night, my aunt encountered a woman in the attic, a misty figure brushing her hair. My aunt asked who she was. The woman turned into mist and went up through the ceiling. This happened multiple times. My aunt kept it secret, as she couldn't explain it. On the last night that my aunt saw this woman in the attic, she told my aunt that S, the great uncle's nickname, and of course that's just using a letter, can't go to work on a certain date. August 22nd, it says. And then it goes on here. My aunt begged my great uncle to stay home from work that day. My great uncle agreed, even though he didn't like to miss work. As predicted, on that day, a boiler exploded, leading to the deaths of everyone on the great uncle's shift. Later, we found newspaper clippings, that confirmed the accident. My great uncle also confirmed that he used to talk to his mom in the attic. She used to brush her hair while sitting in a rocking chair. The house still stands in this town today. I wonder if the woman in the rocking chair is still there. So it sounds like there's this apparition of this family member that somehow helped another family member, this great uncle, avoid being hurt, possibly killed. That's what this story sounds like, and that really is amazing. Again, I think this is maybe not quite as common as far as stories I've heard or read, but it does happen here and there. It does sound like the spirit of a deceased relative, possibly, somehow had knowledge of the future. Again, there's always the question of how. Where are they getting this information from? Do they exist outside of time when they're not in the physical form? But either way, this apparition told the aunt. Doesn't say great aunt. I'm not sure if it's the wife of the man in question there or not. I'm guessing so. It doesn't never said so in the story exactly, but gave basically the family information that led to that basically saved this great uncle's life. And but again, that's amazing. That's a good thing. But whenever that happens, I always just wonder, how does that work? Where is this information coming from? Is it a spirit? And if that's the case, are spirits able to somehow travel through time back and forth in a way that we physically can't, at least as far as we know? At least not under normal circumstances? Or is it something else taking on the form of this relative that is then giving this message for whatever reason? And then, of course, what is that reason? Why is it that this, whoever or whatever this is, cares so much about this great uncle, this man, surviving and not being killed, injured or killed? Obviously, it's a good thing that he wasn't. But the questions are, of course, just why and what is the purpose for all of this? And of course, it's impossible to know the answers. But I love these kinds of stories because it just brings up so many. They just bring up so many questions, and it's really, it makes me think of just the mechanics of how everything works and go down those different tracks like I just kind of described, where is it a spirit? Is it the spirit of the relative in question? Or is it someone else? And then sort of following each of those down those paths. And again, still not really ending up with any clear answers, but yeah, that does happen here and there. I've heard stories, similar stories, of messages, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in separate sightings while people are awake, like this one. But and it's not always a clear message of this is going to happen, so don't let this person go to this place. It's more of like in this story, this person cannot go to this place this one day, which implies that whoever is delivering these messages knows that something is going to happen. Do they know? That's another question. Do they know exactly what's going to happen? And again, that just leads to, how do they know? So, anyway, just I think I'm starting to talk in circles here, so I guess I'll stop with that one. But amazing story there. And again, if it was the only one of its kind that I'd ever encountered before, then maybe it might be easier to write it off, I guess, possibly, but it's not the first one, so it's not so easy for me to do that. So, and of course, I always like to keep in mind that the paranormal possibilities here, as well as the more mundane explanations, which I don't really focus a lot on in this show because I think they're out there and it's fairly there's already enough sort of content out there and shows out there that do cover the more scientific view of the paranormal out there. If you look hard enough, you can find shows like that. So, and that's fine. That's whatever works. But anyway, so getting back to these stories here. This next one, let me see here. Okay, so this next one says, recently, excuse me, recently I had a strange experience in the mountains of western Maine with my partner. We were on a hike to a remote peak nearby. The day was sunny with some clouds, and the forest was full of life. My partner was hiking faster than usual, seemingly pushing themselves. I felt as though we were being watched, but didn't mention it to my partner. While rounding a corner, I saw a large humanoid figure made of made of darkness, about 100 feet away. This figure quickly glided out of view over, let me see, there we go, over rising land after being spotted. The forest had been silent during this encounter. We continued on the hike, excuse me, without further incident once we reached the tree line. Later, my partner mentioned that they had been moving quickly because they also felt like they were being watched. I know this isn't as dramatic as some similar stories, but this is what happened. And that's where the story ends. So it sounds like either some kind of a shadow figure that the writer and their partner saw, or at least some figure that was completely dark. I wonder. They say glided. It makes it almost sound like some kind of a shadow figure more than maybe a physical thing. So it's hard to say. I've heard some people use that or talk about cryptids, talk about Bigfoot in that way, where it just appears to be this dark figure. But then also I've heard of sort of shadow figures seen in forests in the middle of the day, just as Bigfoot are seen in forests. I wonder if those are connected at all. If some shadow figure maybe somehow are able to change into something like a Bigfoot. Are they connected? Are they not? Do they all sort of use the forests? Do they use nature as sort of a place to stay when they're not wandering into people's homes or near people's homes? Because again, shadow figures are seen, inside people's homes and around them, and then of course, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, other cryptids do sort of appear and move around outside of people's homes as well. So, I don't know if there's a connection there or not, but it's interesting to think about that possibility of there being one. And again, I don't know. I know that I've heard stories of different cryptids being able to change either into lights or change from lights into cryptids. So I wonder if they can also do that with shadow. I don't know. I don't think I've heard tons of stories like that, but also there are stories of different cryptids just basically being able to vanish. Go behind trees and things and just vanish, or even just go sort of moving into the more deeper into a forest and just vanish inside there. And I wonder if when they do that, are they changing into shadow? Just the idea that just came to me. I don't know if that's how that goes or not, but either way, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all in the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.